Good to see all of you here. It's a pretty important year, as you know. But 2010 was also an important year. Family Research Council, you're all familiar with us, I'm sure, over these 30-some years, has stood to fight for life, the sanctity of life. We've stood up for religious liberty, and we're really challenged on that in these past few years. And the creeping government, big government, has affected us right down to trying to take atomizers for, when people can't breathe. You got to get a special thing for that now. So there are all kinds of committees that are in place to monitor our every move, and it's been a real challenge. In 2010, the American public spoke up, and our PAC was there and ready. We interviewed and vetted very closely 186 candidates. We supported them. 153 of those won. We had targeted in our PAC 20 particular seats, and we won all but one of those seats, bringing to Washington, D.C. heroes like the, the three you see at the side here. Since Barack Obama ran and won the presidency, the meaning of the old saying, personnel is policy, was never truer. You get what you elect, and we have seen that in spades. The candidates for federal and state offices that we interview have to not mouth the words. They have to have shown that in their own lives they were there for us. They were there for life. They were there for marriage, and they were there to protect our religious liberties. And so we actually, in 2010, by helping to bring these people to Washington, effectively took away Nancy Pelosi's gavel, her private plane, and her abrasive, heavy hand. So we are proud of these new conservatives, and we are proud of them for holding the line, as Gil just said. I am so tired of the media saying they're just holding things up. Yeah, they're holding things up, that's right, because what's coming down from the Obama administration has got to stop. So today, these three great people have agreed to join us and talk about their issues. And so I'll just introduce them and give you their bios just before they come to the microphone. First would be Congresswoman, the Honorable Anne Marie Buerkle. Anne Marie is from the New York District of 25. She was elected into the House of Representatives in the 2010 and took oath of office on January 5. She graduated from St. Joseph's Hospital School of Nursing as a registered nurse in 1972, and she went to work in New York City's Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. In 1977, she graduated from Lemoyne College with a Bachelor of Science degree. 15 years later, she graduated from Syracuse University School of Law with a Juris Doctorate degree. She was Attorney General representing the state of New York on behalf of the Upstate Medical University. For 13 years, she served in that capacity and until 2010 when she took a leave to run for Congress, and it was a heck of a fight, let me tell you. They were out there to stop her, and we're delighted she made it through. She has donated her time and her experience as a pro bono attorney for the Central New York Women's Bar Association, and she has 6 grown children and 11 grandchildren. And please welcome Anne Marie, Congresswoman Anne Marie Buerkle.
Good morning. It is so good to be here. It's like coming home whenever I'm in a group of folks like yourself. It's so energizing. You are America. You represent the values of America, and I want to encourage you, and I want to thank you for all you do. You're on the front lines every day, fighting the fight, trying to get our country back on course. So thank you for what you do. It's an honor to stand here before you today. I ran for Congress because, as the mother of 6 and the grandmother of soon-to-be 12 children, I felt that our country was way off track and that we needed to get her back on course, back to the values that made this nation the greatest nation in the history of mankind. That's what 2010 was about, and that's what 2012 is about. Our country is off course, and there's 2 very different visions for this country. whether we'll have big government making the decisions that we hold so dear, or whether we get back to the understanding and the appreciation of the Declaration of Independence, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When I decided to run for Congress, even the Republicans looked at me like I was just insane. And I was running against someone who had, at that time, $2 million in his bank account. And he eventually went to outspend us 5-1. We worked so hard, but my campaign really was an encouragement to me and should be an encouragement to you that the American dream is not dead. The American dream is alive and well. We began a grassroots campaign that included 43 towns in our district, and we got to know the people who felt the way I did. And you know, there were more of them than there were on the other side. We worked hard. We had a pro-life message, a pro-family message, and a message that said that the government doesn't know what's best for us. You here in my district, you know what's best for you and your family. You should be making those decisions. We need less government, lower taxes, and that was our message. And so what I came away from that in our success, and as Connie mentioned, it was 3 weeks later after Election Day that it was decided. It was absentees that won the race for us. I walked away from there with three very distinct messages and lessons learned. Number one, it is the message, it's not the money. It is, we had the right message, and we had people in the district who are good Americans who understood what 2010 is about. And I'm telling them now how important it is to get the White House back and to get the Senate back and to keep control in the House if we want to preserve the United States of America. The second lesson I learned, and probably it should be the first lesson I learned, when I decided to run and everyone was looking at me like I needed medication, I said, I prayed and I said to God, if you want me to do this, obviously the odds are against me. But if you want me to do this, just open the doors and show me how. I'd never run I ran for the city council back in '94. And he was so faithful to me. He was so, everything I needed came to me at the right time. We defied, the New York Times gave us a 5% chance of winning. And so, it shows you how credible they are. And so I walked away from the campaign and the successful election knowing that it is not the power, it's the provenance. It is what... And so what I would ask of all of you today is pray for all of us in elected office. We are up against a titanic struggle right here and now. Last week in our Foreign Affairs Committee, we voted to defund the UN, the population control, the $50 million. And if you could hear the arguments on the other side, you would have a sense of, and you all know this from what you hear, a sense of what we're up against. Beyond that, in the CR debate, what astounded me about our continuing resolution debate early in March was that the White House and the Democrats drew the line in the sand about defunding Planned Parenthood. They would have defunded our military before they would have defunded Planned Parenthood. That is the titanic struggle that we are up against, the two different visions for this nation, and the two very, just completely opposite approaches on how we should, what kind of a nation we should be. So it's an honor to be here. I look forward to answering questions. I just want to thank all of you again for your service to this nation, for being such great Americans, and for understanding what has made the United States of America the greatest nation in the history of mankind. Thank you all so much.
See, and I'm so proud that we supported her. Taking full credit for these people. But it's just wonderful to see all the candidates, and we saw a lot of them as we vetted them in our pack, step forward. People who had never thought that they were going to run just girded up and said, I'm going. And we're so glad some of them made it. The next speaker is the Honorable Vicky Hartzler. Vicky is from Missouri's 4th Congressional District. She lives with her husband, Lowell, and her daughter, Tiffany, on a working farm in her home county. She is a graduate of both the University of Missouri, Columbia in 1983 and Central Missouri State University in 1992, graduating summa cum laude with a BS in education from MU and an MS, there's a lot of initials here, in education from Central Missouri. She was first elected to political office in November '94 as the state representative from Missouri's 124th District. She served 3 terms, leaving in January 2001. Prior to her time in politics, Mrs. Hartzler taught family and consumer sciences for 11 years. In 2004, she served as spokesperson for the Coalition to Protect Marriage, a state constitutional amendment which passed resoundingly and led to Missouri recognizing traditional marriage as the union of one man and one woman. Mrs. Hartzler feels very passionate about people stepping forward and running for political office and putting your values in place to influence the rest of the nation. She recently authored a book, Running God's Way. She and her husband own a company on farm equipment. That would make sense in Missouri. And we welcome and happy to have her in Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler.
Thank you, Connie. It is great to be here. I've looked forward to this for several months after Connie and I talked, because in 2007, my husband and I were there in the audience, and we were watching you, Connie, interview a couple of other congresswomen at the time, and who knows what God has planned, but he is able, and he enables whom he calls. And so it's just a blessing to be here and to be a part of what God's doing. You know, as Connie mentioned, back in 1994, I was grading papers one night, and an elderly man called me, and he said, well, our current state representative is retiring. Would you consider running for state representative? And I said, I can't do that. I don't know anything about campaigning, and besides, that's kind of dirty business, and I'm making a difference. I feel like maybe working with teenagers right now. But he asked a very important question. He said, would you think about it? Would you pray about it? And I said, okay, we will. So my husband and I did, and we talked to those we trusted, and the answer that came back wasn't really what I wanted to hear. But it was run. And bottom line, that's what we did. You know why? It's because it's important for ordinary people who've been living with the laws, who have morals and values, to get involved in government. If they don't, then on election day, when the voters go into the ballot box, they'll have no one on the ballot who shares their values. So we've got to run to begin with. That first challenge was interesting because there had only been one Republican in my lifetime who'd served as state representative. On primary election day, you only picked one ballot because that's all there was to choose from in my county. But we went door to door. We worked hard. People joined us, and we ended up winning with 60% of the vote, or reelected with 69 and 67% of the vote. And what I discovered, and I feel so blessed to be a part of this, is that public service is a ministry. According to Romans 13, when it says to pray for those in authority, it said, because he is God's minister to do you good. And he says it 3 times. So it's important that people of faith view it as a ministry and ask God, is this a ministry that you would call me to help serve God and serve others through public service? But it was an honor. And then in 2000, I decided we were blessed with a baby, and I would be home and focus on the family, and so I did not run for re-election. I've been a full-time mom, although I've been very involved in helping other campaigns and helping lead Missouri's marriage campaign in 2004, where we were outspent 22-1, and we ended up winning with 71% of the vote. God is able. Last year, I was at home again, and people started coming up to me, this would be a couple years ago, I guess, after 2008, and asking me to run for Congress. And I never had any plans to run for Congress, but once again, would you think about it? Would you pray about it? And you know, once again, the word came, we need to run. We need to stop this train wreck that was coming down the pike, that was destroying all the values that we hold dear and the foundations that made our country great. This time, though, it would be going up against a 34-year incumbent, been the only congressman in my voting lifetime that was a chairman of a very powerful committee here that had a lot of money in the bank, and Nancy Pelosi helping him. Well, you know what? Our district isn't Nancy Pelosi, and we were tired of him squandering our vote with him. And so we ran, and people joined us and worked hard, and on Election Day, we won by 5 percentage points, and I'm so honored to be here. You know, many people ask me during my campaign, what do you want to do? What's your agenda when you get to Washington, D.C.? And I thought about it, and I said, you know, I'm not really going with a to-do list. I'm going with an undo list. We need to undo a lot of the onerous policies and regulations that's coming out of this administration. We need to reverse course and get back to the Constitution and back those things that federal government should be doing and leave the other things to the state and the private industry. And so part of what we have to undo is the onerous policies and the tax against the family. And so I've been honored to co-sponsor several pro-life pieces of legislation to stand for life. I've been proud also to continue to stand for the traditional family. You know, last April, our president directed the Attorney General, Eric Holder, to not defend the Defense of Marriage Act in court because he thought it was unconstitutional, even though it had been upheld 3 times in federal courts, while at the same time his health care plan had been ruled unconstitutional in multiple courts, yet he continues to defend it. That is wrong. It's not up to the president to determine if something's constitutional or not. It's the courts to determine that. So I offered House Resolution 25, which decries the president for not upholding his constitutional duty to uphold and defend the laws of the land and calling on him to do it. He didn't, but thanks to John Boehner in the House of Representatives, the law is being defended, and we're having to pay for it, but we are not going to let that law go undefended. I'm also a member of the Armed Services Committee and feel very honored there. And I know you just had a session on that, but there's certainly an attack on marriage occurring, and they're trying to use the military to advance their social agenda. It's wrong, and it must be stopped. I offered an amendment to the Defense Appropriations Bill to specifically put into law that the policy of the Department of Defense is to uphold marriage as between a man and a woman. There's another amendment offered by my friend Todd Aiken, congressman from Missouri as well, and he specifically, that amendment says that the chaplains in the military do not have to perform anything but traditional marriage ceremonies. And yet, yes, we know what the president has done, the Department of Defense, issuing these memos, giving them the right to do that. We are going to fight that with everything that we have. The law of the land is marriage between a man and a woman, and it needs to be upheld. So I'm honored and humbled to serve the good people of Missouri's 4th and to serve the Lord through this position, and I'm going to continue to do everything I can to uphold faith, family, and freedom for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, and we claim her too. Really makes you proud. And the next hero on this panel is the Honorable Mike Pompeo from Kansas. Yes, that's pronounced Pompeo, because I was backstage and reminded me about the volcano in Italy. He was elected to the 112th Congress on November 2, 2010, never having been in elected office before. He has a deep commitment to limited government, freedom, individual responsibility, and rewarding hard work and innovation. Mr. Pompeo serves on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees federal law and policy relating to healthcare, telecommunications, energy, and trade issues. He attended the United States Military Academy at West Point, graduating first in his class. During his time as an officer in the United States Army, Pompeo served with distinction as a cavalry officer in the U.S. Army, leading troops as they patrolled the Iron Curtain before the fall of the Berlin Wall. He earned a law degree from Harvard Law School. We'll forgive you for that. and he was an editor also of the Harvard Law Review. He then came back to his family roots in central Kansas and founded Thayer Aerospace along with 3 partners. In less than a decade, the company grew to having over 400 Kansas employees. He and his wife Susan have been active leaders in the community through teaching Sunday school at their church, serving on charitable boards of directors, and cheering on Wichita State in both athletics and academic pursuits. Another hero, Congressman Pompeo.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. It is amazing to be here today. You know, with all that biography, she didn't mention that my wife and I taught 5th grade Sunday school. And of all the things I've done in my life, I think that prepared me for this job more than anything else. I mean that in so many ways. There's a lot of rambunctious folks, and they are desperately in need of leadership and communicating values, and translating those values and being honest about the things that you believe in and that you're passionate about. I want to thank everyone here today. I think what Americans did in November of 2010 was truly amazing. You see these 2 amazing women up here alongside me. There are 85 plus more, very much like us. And I mean amazing because I was elected. Indeed, my dad, a diehard Democrat, thought it was pretty amazing. But I mean, it was a deep recognition of our Constitution. Our founding fathers created the People's House, the House of Representatives, for exactly the moment we found ourselves in November. A time when we had a president and a compliant Congress that had gone radically in the wrong direction, and Americans felt a tyranny upon them, and they wanted out. And Americans did something unique. They sent 90 folks with, and you can see this in the presentation report, 90 folks to Congress who are without fear. Without fear. Without fear of speaking the simple truths that we all talk about so often, and you hear. I want to talk to you about it from the perspective a little bit of Kansas, the place that I'm from. Remember, this is the state that entered the Union when the struggle for slavery was upon us, and the Republicans made sure that Kansas entered the state, making sure that every human life would be free and it mattered. This is a state that in the early 1990s, some of you will remember the Summer of Mercy, when Wichita was the center of the pro-life movement, making sure that every single innocent human being got to breathe that first breath. This is an amazing place. This is a state that created some amazing, amazing companies, Learjet and Pizza Hut. Yeah, Pizza Hut. Cessna and White Castle. We are getting anybody. Yeah. Beechcraft and a little company called Koch Industries. Now, I graduated from West Point 25 years ago. And I served in the Army for about 6 years on active duty and was in the reserves for a little while as well. You had General Mixon up here speaking this morning. We cannot use our military to promote social ideas that do not reflect the values of our nation. I sit on a committee that deals with energy and power, and you say, how's that connected to families? If we don't have folks working, doing the most fundamental task that allows them to take care and put food on the table for their families and to work hard, to go home at night and talk to their kids about the task that they undertook, this noble thing. If we've got a president who talks about profit as if it is evil, then we've got a nation that has moved so far from where our founding fathers wanted to take it that we know we have an enormous task in front of us over the next 13 months. I had the good fortune to sit on a panel 2 weeks ago now, where there were some hearings about a company called Solyndra. Boo. I say boo. The president continues to defend it as a wonderful decision for American democracy. And so $500 million of your taxpayer money went into a black hole, but the problem is so much deeper. The problem is a government mindset at the federal level that says, we know what to do with your money and your resources, and we know your values better than you do. And if you'll just send all your money to us in Washington, then we can fix all the things that face our nation today. We know, as folks who are conservative, had a set of values that are radically different than that are much more reflective of where our founders intended our nation to be, that we have to get out of that. We'll do it. On behalf of the other two here and the other members of our freshman class, let me ask you one more thing. We have 13 months before a major election. We have been working very hard in the House of Representatives, and we have passed some amazingly wonderful conservative legislation. But you all know where it sits today. Ride to the sound of the guns and send us more troops. Thank you, and God bless you.
Claim him too. Well, we have just a few minutes left, so I just thought I'd throw a few questions to you. All right, you're all new to Congress. This is your first year. You're here. How do you feel about the process? You know, since you're up there on the Hill and you're seeing how it works or how it doesn't work. And that's the first part of my question. The second part of my question is, how do you feel when you hear President Obama call you a do-nothing Congress? And who would like to take that first?
I'll be brief. I think the first part that's what we do is, it's such an honor to be representatives here in Congress, but the issue we have is, as Mike so put it so well, the Senate, it stands in our way of accomplishing anything. And so if you could leave here with one message today, and that's what Mike just said, help us, send us more troops, let's get the majority back in the Senate. It is so important.
Absolutely.
With regards to the president and his comments, he's in campaign mode. He's not concerned about what's best for this country. He's not concerned about the economy and jobs. He's concerned about getting reelected. And besides the Senate, we need to get back the White House. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would just add that hello. I would just add that it's a do-nothing Senate. The House has passed many, many bills, but it's the Senate that's do-nothing.
I just add, I think a good day in Washington, D.C. is when one bill has not been passed.
That's right.
And we've got a lot of work, as Vicky spoke about, we've got a lot of work to do to undo a lot, but for the time being, I know that things that come out of this Congress won't be things that reflect our values because of where this White House sits. He'll reject everything that we all stand for. And so when he says we do nothing, I take a sigh.
That's right. That's right. Well, we do have 1 minute left, so I will just say that we are going to do everything we can at the Family Research Council, along with the other sponsors of this event, to make a change in the change. Obama wanted a change. We really need a change from that change. You'll be hearing later on, and it's parked outside. We've got a bus coming to your states. It's called the Value Voters Put America Back on the Right Road bus. We're going to register voters across this country. We're going to bring you help. We've got 6 Senate seats where we're particularly looking at to fund and to support through independent expenditures. We're going to do everything we can to get you that help, and I hope you will all remember these good people, and so many like them are stepping forward now. They just need your support. And you know, the 5% chance that you had of winning, don't even believe it. If they're good people, they can make it. They just need your support. Thank you so much for listening to our panel.